no. Yes, yes, absolutely.
Okay.
We can extend a little bit.
No problem.
I think, sir, I can start with your
Yeah, yeah.
introduction.
You can start right now.
All right. Good evening, everyone, and a very warm welcome to today's enlightening webinar hosted by Homeopathy 360. I'm Dr. Noori and titled Illuminating Homeopathic Philosophy, Deepening Understanding Beyond Kant's Framework. We are honored to have with us a distinguished scholar, author, researcher, and one of the most respected contemporary thinkers in homeopathic philosophy, Professor Dr. E.S. Rajendran. Following the overwhelming appreciation for Dr. Rajendran's earlier webinars, we are delighted to be back with a brand new thought provoking session. Sir is internationally recognized for his profound contributions to homeopathic education and research. His seminal work, published in 2002, has guided an entire generation of undergraduate and postgraduate students. The book we explore today spans 30 chapters, thoughtfully delivered through three structured lectures, and remains a cornerstone for anyone seeking deeper insights into the evolution and philosophy of homeopathy. We are privileged to have him here to guide us beyond Kant's framework into a richer, more expansive understanding of the philosophical foundations of homeopathy. Please be ready with your queries. Without further delay, please join me in welcoming our esteemed speaker, Professor Dr. E.S. Rajendran. Sir, we welcome you today.
Thank you. Thank you, Dr. Noori, for your kind words and introduction. So today we had two sessions in the 10th of November and 18th of November. And it was about the modern research in homeopathy and chronic diseases. And we had got a lot of feedbacks about the speeches, and because basically it is related to the published books which I have done in the last 3 decades time. Today we are going to speak about based on this book, that is the New Lights Lectures on Homeopathy and Philosophy. This book was published in 2002, so it's almost 23 years, over 24 years now. And this book was basically based on my teaching of chronic organon on philosophy of homeopathy starting from 1990. So this book is, like Dr. Noori was telling, this book has 3 lecture sessions, and first lecture is basically pure philosophy, Western philosophy. I didn't include Eastern philosophy into this because we are dealing with the homeopathy, which is coming out of the framework of Western philosophy. So there are 9 chapters. Especially the general philosophy introduction, early philosophers, Socrates, Plato, Aristotle, Francis Bacon, Friedrich Hegel, René Descartes, and John Mill. So there are 9 chapters of philosophers. They are linked to homeopathy. I didn't mention other philosophers in this. And lecture 2 is the history and evolution of man, medicine, and homeopathy. That is like a brief study of human evolution, evolution of medical science, discovery of homeopathy and life of Hahnemann, evolution of the principles of homeopathy one after another, influence of logic in homeopathy, and Hahnemann and evolution of homeopathy, evolution of medical science since 1842 after the death of Hahnemann, and evolution of homeopathy since 1842. This is a second lecture, and third lecture comprises of homeopathy, its principles and practice. So there around 13 lectures are there. In these lectures, we try to reason how homeopathy evolved and where it stands now and where it has to go in the future. So this is a conceptual, because it's a lot of philosophy is involved in homeopathy. And our question is why there is a philosophy in science. A lot of people think science is independent of philosophy. But truly speaking, science is an offshoot of a particular philosophy, which we will come to a clear vision about that when we are moving forward, especially when we are comparing homeopathy and its philosophy, and especially allopathy and or conventional medicine and its philosophy. When we compare and contrast, we really understand the science has its basis always on philosophy. Because philosophy is the basic thought process from which everything arises in our life. So these lectures, I'm so happy that this book was taken up by almost every postgraduate students in India all along. And not only that, even undergraduate students also read the book well. And this book helped a lot into redefine homeopathy as a science in a better way. So this divided into 3 sessions, as I told you, 9 chapters in lecture 1 and 8 chapters in lecture 2 and 13 chapters in lecture 3. So this is what we are trying to look here. This book was first published in 2002. Second edition was in 2013. And basically, this book was as a prescribed reference book in many universities and at a point of time by the Central Council of Homeopathy. So we are today elaborating important philosophers of the West, starting from Socrates, Plato, and Aristotle. Their influence is there in every philosophy and science and way of science, way of thoughts in the Western culture. And additionally, we are coming with other philosophers in the later years, maybe 2000 years after Socrates, Plato, and Aristotle, that is Francis Bacon, Descartes, and also later part in the 18th century by Hegel. All these people influenced Hahnemannian thoughts and Hahnemann's concept of holism. And Cartesian philosophy was a dualistic way, which also we will try to understand, to compare and contrast where homeopathy stands, where modern medicine stands in its ideological differences. So I want to make it more interesting. I hope you can enjoy this lecture. So what is happening? If you look at Socratic time, Socrates was one of the first philosopher in the West. His period was starting from BC 469 to 399. And this period is very important in the human history because this period is the time where a lot of changes happened in the screen problem. A lot of changes happened in the philosophy of East and West simultaneously, which I have mentioned in my book, The Ray of Civilization. Sorry, some small changes happened in my PowerPoint, but it's okay. So what happened is Socratic ideological Socratic ideological way of looking into the philosophy or teaching method was called skeptical. And he raises questions and he never gives the direct answers. And he make his disciples to think and come to the conclusion. And that is called a Socratic discussions were conversational in nature. It was a dialogue. And from Socrates to Plato, Plato was an immediate predecessor as well as the student of Socrates. And Plato's period was extending from 428 to 347 BC. If you look at that period in India, we had a lot of philosophers, starting from Lord Buddha in the 500 BC, even before the period of Socrates. And that was a period of enlightenment of the current world. After the disappearance of the Bronze Age civilizations like Indus Valley civilization or Mesopotamian civilization or even Mycenaean civilization in Greek or even Egyptian civilization, this 2000 BC to 500 BC was a period from the beginning as well as coinage of the new civilizational paradigm and a new science, new philosophy, new thought process. So in the West, it was spearheaded by Socrates, Plato, and Aristotle. Whereas in the East, it was spearheaded primarily by Lord Buddha as well as by many others followed by him. So there was a parallelism between both, which I have explained in very detail about this parallelism in the Eastern and Western philosophy in the book Ray of Civilization. So these are the important philosophies we look into to understand the homeopathy and its philosophy, not only homeopathy, to understand in general what philosophy is. So these earlier philosophers, Socrates, Plato, and Aristotle, contributed immensely to the human development in the Western world and later the whole world. Because when the West has conquered the East, naturally the Western philosophical notions came into the East, and people got influenced by both Western and Eastern philosophies. So Plato was the first philosopher to teach in the higher levels of philosophy. And he was influenced by Socrates, definitely. And the previous philosophers, Greek philosophers like Heraclitus, Pythagoras, as well as Parmenides, all these people influenced Plato. So Plato's theory of ideas, that is, truth is the knowledge of reality. Truth is the knowledge of reality. That is the coinage of Plato. And the his theory of knowledge, and his one idea that the universe is an illusion to some point, even today it is valid, because he had created 4 levels of knowledge system. First is conjectures, that is what we are seeing by the naked eye, and the second is the belief, and the third is discursive intellect, that is a mathematical knowledge, more accurate than the first two, conjectures and belief. Fourth is the rational insight. Rational insight is the ultimate source of knowledge and ultimate expression of knowledge in the humanity. That is why his disciple and the next important and most important philosopher, Aristotle, 384 BC to 322 BC, he said, man is a rational animal. He was the first person to define man as a rational animal. So he contributed immensely to the philosophy. And his logic was both deductive and inductive logic. And he is the first person to categorize the study of objectives and objectivities into 10 categories. He called the 10 categories of Aristotle. Till the period of Renaissance, Aristotle's categories were the basis of study of material world in this universe. So Aristotle's contribution for 2000 years was immense. And his metaphysical stand was basically most important was dynamism and organic theory. Organic theory is very, very important to understand, because organic theory says that the whole is always more important than the parts. So it is a holistic philosophy. Aristotle's philosophy of organic philosophy was a holistic philosophy. There are 3 philosophers, they focused exclusively on this. One is Aristotle. Second philosopher who came later, 2000 years later, was Francis Bacon. And the next was Hegel. And the fourth was Hahnemann. But Hahnemann was the only philosopher, if you look at that, utilized the concept of organic theory and holism into the patient care, into the human sickness, into the medical world. That is an important contribution of Hahnemann. So this is a chain of philosophers: Aristotle, Francis Bacon, Hegel, followed by Hahnemann. And Hahnemann's contribution is always being influenced by the philosophy of these previous 3 predecessors. So Aristotle's another important contribution is about the potentiality and actuality. He said a small word that an oak seed, which is hardly 2 centimeters in size, has the whole potential of an oak tree. So Aristotle could understand the whole concept of genetics at that time. Same concept later utilized by Hahnemann when he evolved the theory of chronic diseases and potentiality of the diseases in our body. So this philosophy is there underground in the basis of homeopathy. So Francis Bacon's contributions are enormous, because Francis Bacon, there are 2 philosophers who created the current world we are living. One is Francis Bacon and another person was Descartes. They were not exactly similar in the perceptions and knowledge, and logically they were different, but they created the world. So Lord Bacon also, his period was 1561 to 1626, closely 1800 years after the period of Socrates, Plato, and Aristotle. And Francis Bacon's most important writings were essays, advancement of learning, and novum organum. Novum organum means new organon. The first person who wrote organon is Aristotle. Aristotle's logical work is called the organon. Second person who wrote organon was Francis Bacon. His organon was called the novum organum. And as you know, the third person to write organon was Dr. Samuel Hahnemann. And Dr. Samuel Hahnemann wrote organon to modify the medical science. Francis Bacon wrote Organon Novum Organum to modify the philosophy and science, especially inquiry into the science, because the scientific inquiry was entrapped in the philosophy and logic of Aristotle for 2000 years. And Francis Bacon was a philosopher who took out the science from the framework of Aristotelian philosophy and logic into a totally new framework. And that framework is where Bacon said, study of science is nothing but study of nature. Study of nature and establish the cause-effect relationship is the basis of science. And he said there is no word called chance in the dictionary. So everything is possible. And he didn't believe the traditional education of 15th century. So he was given a totally different concept and philosophy into the inductive method, which was earlier proposed by Aristotle. And he proposed the new inductive logic. That is what he forwarded in Novum Organum. So there are so many things he said. Human activities should be focused to find out scientific knowledge. That means to discover the science. Discoveries of the secrets of nature. That is what is called science. And for that, he modified the inductive method. And he created a new inductive process that is called modern inductive logic. And in the modern inductive logic, there are some of the common principles. That is, there are some problems from commonalities or particulars to generals when you derive a theory, from a lot of common experience when you derive a theory. For simple example, I will tell you why homeopathy is linked to that. Dr. Hahnemann has an experience of Singodam bark. Even before Hahnemann's time, if you look at organon introduction, Hahnemann has written there are 90 plus examples of people identified similarity happens with cure. But none of them could create a principle similar similibus curator. Hahnemann is the first person in the West to create such a theory. And that process of seeing many experiments, outcome in the nature, taking it out and creating a conclusion and making a dictum out of that, a theory out of that, a principle out of that is a very complicated process. And Bacon's theory is that this is possible because uniformity of nature, unity of nature, as well as law of causation. And law of cause effect is always common, he says. He believed like that. And universe is not a chaos, it's a cosmos. And therefore the laws should be always applicable. This is the basis on which he said we can create general principles. And that led to the new inventions in the world of science. And that is why the world is different in the last 500 years. And it is imploding and exploding both ways in the last 100 years, especially in the last 30 years. So this explosion of knowledge is something unbelievable in the today's world. So when we are doctors and homeopathic physicians, we are common people. At the same time, we have some peculiarities because we are prone to learn philosophy, logic, everything as a part of science. But for a modern medicine doctor, there is no question of studying philosophy and science. You need to know the data and you need to know the statistical values. You need to know the science in a different way. Why this different way is coming? Why we have a different perspective and conventional medicine have a different perspective. That is what the importance of learning what philosophy is, what is logic of homeopathy, what is a logic and philosophy of conventional medicine. These things are very important if we study the things in this perspective. So Bacon's most important contribution, one of the important contribution is the source of prejudice. How the man become prejudiced, because every human being is prejudiced. That's why Hahnemann wrote in Organon, an unprejudiced observer, well aware of the futility of transcendental speculations. That's what the Hahnemann says. So speculations are part of life, but prejudice is something subjective. Prejudice is there in our mental process. Prejudice is both subjective as well as objective. So prejudice, he classified prejudice into categories. So Bacon said that there are sources of prejudice, and the basic sources of prejudice is idols of tribe, common belief system of all human beings. This is a primary prejudice according to Bacon. And idols of den or cave, that is prejudice created from living together in a society or in a family. Also individual peculiarities, individual disposition, the way of education, the way of upbringing, everything will add prejudice into our mind. And also idols of the market. Idols of the market is interactional. That means association of words and names and the usage of language, interpersonal transactions, everything is a source of prejudice. We know that language can be used in different rhythm, different ways, different meaning, and the same word can be used and interpreted in different ways. So he said, analysis of the meaning of the real meaning of the word is most important. That means the context, superficial meaning and deeper meaning, etymological basis of the word. So now we know that we are Indians are more concerned. Indus Valley civilization, there was a script and there was a language. But the script is almost with us, but we are unable to decode the script. How the people use the script and what was the language exactly used? What was the language spoken? We don't have a Rosetta Stone to differentiate and compare between the Indus Valley language and after the post-Indus Valley language. We don't have such a thing. This Rosetta Stone helped to decode the hieroglyphics, that means the Egyptian alphabets, because there was a stone in which in the BC 300, half of it was written, an order from Ptolemy was written in Greek language, and the same matter was written in the same stone in the lower side in Egyptian language. So this stone helped to decode the complete source of word meaning and language between these Egyptian languages. But we are unable to find in Indian context because for the Indus Valley civilization, we don't have a Rosetta Stone till now to understand what was it. So what is our language is something very unique. So language is something which can be used as a doctor. We all use talk to the patients. Your sympathy, your empathy, your context, as well as your way of using the words and your amount of emotional connectivity, all these things are expressed in your language and facial expressions. So language is something very unique. So Bacon said language we are using is merely a language game without the proper knowledge of the actual meaning of the word. So without knowing actual meaning also, people can communicate. That is something which we are seeing everyday life. Idols of the theater. That is something very unique you should know. It is the false and unscientific theories of science. We always say science is always scientific and science is always true. The truth is that a lot of unscientific theories we are living on. And many of the unscientific theories which we believe true are truly false. In medical science, you can see it very commonly. And that is another thing is the false unscientific belief series of philosophy. So philosophy and science can enlighten people, upgrade the human rationality. At the same time, they can engage human life, human thought process, and even human scientific understanding. That is what we are in today, because science, a lot of medical science, especially, you can see that it is mostly a blitzering advertisement business rather than a proper science. And that is what is medical science is getting more and more worse day by day. So this is what one of the important contributions of Lord Bacon. So Lord Bacon said that specific individualistic percepts or experience and the basic principles of nature can be gained only that way. Specific individualistic percepts or experience. He was an empiricist based on the theory of experience. If you have experience, and you can find out the reason for that. That's what all homeopaths are doing all along. We had experience of cure, and we are trying to find the reason for cure. And that is what we are trying to understand and interpret. For a long time, we use philosophy to shield that investigation. But now the science is coming up and science is getting more and more subtle, and we are coming close to the subtlety level of homeopathy. And now we are able to see it in a pure scientific form rather than a philosophical admixture of our thought process. So he was in favor of behavioralism in psychology. And there is no word chance in his dictionary. And his philosophy is called inductive methodology. And inductive methodology or inductive gap is a major problem, which I said corrected by unity of nature, uniformity of nature, and law of causation. So Bacon contributed immensely to the development of science. Because of the new philosophical thought process of Lord Bacon, this scientific world evolved. What we are living today as a scientific world is contributed by, as I told you, by these three philosophers. That means basically by Lord Bacon, Descartes, and later philosophers. Especially if you look at physics, we can find out the contributions of the current world is a little bit complex, but till the last century, it was the influence of Newton was equally important. So this is what Bacon is: an empiricist, a theoretician, and a scientific humanist. And his contribution is unbelievably superior. So the logic of homeopathy is linked to two people, Aristotle and Lord Bacon, two honeymen. And they use deduction and induction to come out with a major premise. And this deduction and induction is the basis of scientific knowledge. And we cannot exactly differentiate deduction and induction because they are always complementary to each other. And deduction and induction are complete when there is an element of intuition coming into that. Typically, that's what we are doing in homeopathy. Because we have a materia medica, that is the information of the drugs. We try to correlate this information of patients' materia medica with patients' symptoms with the materia medica drug symptoms, and we use many tools for that, and we use concept of chronic disease as an additional thing to generalize. But end of the day, even we repertorize, we get 5 or 6 or 7 drugs, and from that you choose one drug. That part is your intuition. Induction and deduction is contributed by intuition is very important. That intuition is not just like a mental process, but it is an expression of totality of your knowledge. Intuition is never happens out of the blue sky. Intuition happens when you have a premeditated knowledge in your mind. And that premeditated knowledge in your subconscious mind operates, and you will find the correct answer to a question, a correct remedy to a patient. And that is why every homeopath is partially a philosopher and mostly a logician. We are unaware of that, but I always say to my students, you are not like a regular doctor who treat and prescribe on the basis of lab reports. No, you are a doctor. You may see the lab reports. At the same time, you prescribe on the basis of a knowledge, a secret knowledge, which you acquired through your process of learning, process of thinking, and process of experimenting, and finally a conclusion. That conclusion is your prescription, and that is very important. So our activity in homeopathic practice is partly inductive, partly deductive, and partly it is intuitive. So 3 elements are definitely there in a homeopathic prescription and practice. If you can differentiate it in your own practice and understand at your own mental level, that will enlighten you much bigger. And another important, this is Hahnemann's contributions of Hahnemann. Here you can see that cinchona bark, when he discovered from cinchona bark the theory of similia similibus currender, that was a process of inductive and deductive, as well as that intuitive element is naturally coming up everywhere. So each and every principle of homeopathy Hahnemann devised by using these 3 elements: induction, deduction, and intuition. But many places, if you look at the chronic disease, the discovery of chronic disease was, I told you in the last class, mostly it was inductive in nature. But the conclusion, when you take, there is a subjectivity of the physician, subjectivity of Hanuman, the emphatic knowledge he created in his mind, that adds on to that. That happens in every discovery. It never happens without that. So study of materia medica, or the genius of remedy, is something which you can say is a process of induction. At the same time, when you apply the drug, more deductive in nature, from a generals to particular. So induction in general, from particular you create a general. That means lot of symptoms you take and say the patient is chilly. That is an inductive process. When you apply a common general symptom, burning sensation, then burning sensation you apply in each location and see which drug is coming, burning in the arms, burning in the palms, burning in the tongue, or burning in the eyes. Altogether you take generalized burning. That become again induction and deduction combinedly coming up. So a lot of things are there in the homeopathic practice when you learn about induction and deduction in detail. Today, we don't have time to go to the minute details, so you can go through and you can understand it later. So Hanuman's logic is an amazing mixture of Aristotle's Bacon's logic with high level of intuition of Dr. Hanuman as a physician. And he was not only a physician, he was a linguist with more than 7 languages. He was well aware. One more philosopher I just want to mention, important to homeopathy, is Hegel. He was almost like a contemporary of Hanuman, and he was one of the most complex philosophers in the West in the last 500 years. And his one contribution, which is very close to homeopathy, I would like to highlight here, philosophical concept of part and whole relationship of Hanuman is something very close to that of Hegel. The whole or totality is always more than the mathematical summation of individual parts. This is what Hegel says. Whole or totality is always more than the mathematical summation of the individual parts, and nothing exists in isolation. Everything exists in a unity, in a social unity, in a universal unity, as well as if it's a human beings, they live in a unity of society. So if you look at homeopathy, same thing you understand, totality of organs is an individual. Whereas in specialization, when you come, you see that perfection of organs leads to the perfection of a human being. This one word I can tell you the difference between homeopathy and allopathy very well. In modern medicine, you will see that each organ has to be taken care of independently. So there is a specialist for each organ, and that specialist will take care of each organ. And when each organ is taken care, the whole system will work perfectly. This philosophy is derived from Descartes. I am coming to that. But Aristotelian, Baconian, Hegelian philosophy, when you take it into, you will see that the organism is more important. The whole organism is important, and from the whole organism, individual parts are functioning well. So the treatment and cure should be focused on the holistic whole organism. That is the basis of holism. Whereas specialization is a concept where you say that man is simply like a machine. And the machine is organic machine. You can call it organic machine, which is composed of so many organs and tissues. So each organ and tissue harmoniously functioning, the whole human being is functioning well. So focus on organs, focus on tissues, focus on the blood, focus on everything individually and treat them. That's why we have endocrinologists, we have liver specialists, we have cardiologists, we have nephrologists, we have dermatologists, we have psychiatrists, all sort of specialists are there. But in homeopathy, even if you are a pediatrician with MD or a dermatologist with MD or a psychiatrist MD, you end of the day practice holistically. You have to look at the patient's mental, physical frame and combine together and see the characteristics and find a drug which has a similar action in all these areas. This is something unique. That is what makes homeopathy unique. That's why integrating allopathy and homeopathy is practically very impossible, because you are walking in the opposite direction many a time. You can do still, but I am saying it is very difficult. So the organic theory says that everything is organically related. Same thing is applied in politics. And that was the basis of socialism. And the whole philosophy of communism of Marx came out of the philosophy of Hegel. That means man is an inseparable part of the society. Without society, a man is a big zero. So this is what that when you utilize the philosophy in a social sense, you get it like that. So that is the reason why two questions are always never-ending problem. One is, an individual is more important or a society is more important. The same thing is applicable in human body also. That means in the medical science also. So this question will never go away. It will be with us. And different answers will come up prominently in different part of human existence. And it will go away and another one will come. So all these qualities are contributed from society and nature we live in. So apart from nature, society, human beings have no existence. That is the basis of communist ideology, which somehow we can say that dilapidated and disappeared in the course of time. So logical method of Hegel was dialectical method. Dialectical method was otherness. I exist because you all are existing. If you all are not there, I'm not there. So this is something which we call relativity and relative relationship between different objects, which one is connected to the other. So that is what Spinoza said in 17th century, 18th, 16th century, all determinations are negations. When you would say a determination, definitely you are negating so many things. So this philosophy of Hegel was used by a lot of political personalities in the Europe in the last century. And definitely that philosophy was slowly, social part of that philosophy has gone away, or the political philosophy of Hegel has disappeared, slowly disappearing now also. But scientific side, especially the organic concept of a human existence, is still very relevant. One more philosopher I would like to just say briefly about is Descartes, and his period was 1596 to 1605. And he was basically a mathematician and a philosopher, and he was looking for mathematical certainty in philosophy. So he said there should be an absolute point of starting for metaphysics. So his famous coinage was cogito ergo sum, means I think, therefore I am. So that is what I am. Because I am there, the universe is there. And he is the first philosopher in history, made a drastic change in the perception. He said, there are two relative substances. He said one absolute reality, that is God. And second, two relative realities, that is mind and body. And he said, mind and body exist independently of one another and fundamentally different from one another. That was his dualism. That was the dualistic philosophy of Descartes. And mind and body got philosophically separated first, then later in modern medicine, it got scientifically separated. That is why we have psychiatrists to treat the mind, and we have other physicians, surgeons to treat other body parts in the body. And this differentiation was initiated by Descartes. And it was later, after 19th century, it became the norm of conventional modern medicine, especially after the theories of Virchow and the discovery of bacteriology and organ-specific learning, which happened in the 19th century, made conventional modern medicine an offshoot of Descartes' Cartesian philosophy of dualism. And that is why the scientific knowledge about each individual organs have tremendously improved in the last 50 to 70 years time. Because the whole focus is organ specific. If you go to a modern medicine hospital, any tertiary care hospital, you will find that very easily how this philosophical point of view influenced the health industry and medical science. Going and meeting a nephrologist and he will say that your kidney is fine. Why can't you go and meet, endocrinologist, because you may have some thyroid problem. And if you meet an endocrinologist, the doctor will say, oh, why can't you go and meet a hepatologist, because I think you have a little bit of liver related issues. So we have compartmentalized and we are treating the individual organs, and every specialist is happy, world is happy, people are happy, because this is a extreme formation of the philosophy of Descartes and which is ruling the current health world. But there are limitations in every philosophy. That limitations will, slowly making them to fade away. And modern medicine is slowly going into that direction right now. So when you look at that, Descartes' philosophy and its influence is drastic. In scientific terms, our knowledge about the human existence, human body has tremendously improved because of separation of mind and body. The separation of mind and body has increased the scientific knowledge to a very, very high level. But the reality is, the problem is, when you separate and learn like that, the gap between your understanding and reality become wider and wider. And at some point, the whole science will fall into that gap. And that will be like a black hole, which will absorb everything. So this entire world is now thinking mind and body are separate things. But it is not a right way of thinking. If you logically try to sequence, philosophically try to understand this mechanistic nature theory of philosophy of human body and medical science is doomed to be failed, because people have no idea about mind. There was a serious problem in the West. I can tell you shortly. The serious problem in the West is the whole concept of mind was evolved, started with Sigmund Freud, and it got crystallized around 1900, 1901, 1905, 1910, 1920 period. He wrote so many things about psychology. And Freud is definitely the father of Western psychology. I won't say he's the father of psychology. He's the father of Western psychology. And after the period of Freud only, the value of mind and related things become more important in the West. And another important issue with that is the whole Western philosophy, the Western psychology is based on
I think there's some internet issue. We'll try to connect with sir. Please be patient, audience. Thank you.
Can you hear me? Some disruption came suddenly.
Yes.
Can you hear me now?
Yes, now we can.
Is
It's fine.
this one, Mohit, 1 minute. Screen sharing is going on or not?
No, you have to.
Something went suddenly off. I just 1 minute, don't worry. We'll set it right. Yeah, 1 second. So sorry for the disruption. So the problem with the mental studies in the West, it is even today, is a child play. They have not reached anywhere near to human psyche. They have no idea about what is human psyche. But in the East, I can tell you, even during the Indus Valley civilization, we had a very clear idea about what is human mind. If you look at the East, if you look at the yoga and tantric practices in the East, 3000, 3500 years old. The yogis always studied about the true nature of mind. True nature of mind is, they studied about the mind which is pure, not about the sick mind. And also they had a clear idea about what is mind. Mind is nothing but the subtle form of energy, or the subtle energy form of the human body. So body and mind is always together. They are not separate, like Descartes said. Mind has influence in the body, profound influence in the body, and body has influence in the mind. So they are inseparable unit. So this inseparable unit is being separated for the convenience of the study of health industry and medicine, and try to find out the medication for everything. I am saying that is doomed to fail. But I can tell you one thing. When Descartes' theory, he said very clearly, human body is like a machine, and moving principle is the heat in the heart. Organs of motion are the muscles, organs of sensation, the nerves, etc. His dualism failed to explain the relationship between mind and body. So Descartes is the first philosopher in human history created the separation of mind and body for the study, for the purpose of learning and practice. So he said interactionism can happen between both. So Cartesian school of the philosophy is the basis of scientific development, definitely the scientific development of medical science. And he had included, or he accepted, the existence of external world with the prime importance. Whereas in Indian psychological perspective and practice, we have a very clear idea that I was talking about Eastern philosophy. Few words I will talk about that. In the East, if you start from Patanjali's Yoga Sutra or start from Krishna's Bhagavad Gita or any of the books of that nature, or any of the Upanishads, you will see that the whole story is related to the mind. And we are Eastern people understood what is mind as it is. But in the West, mind was an alien one. It's an alien creation. It is something different. It is not a part of the body. It's something related. The same thing you can see in the concept of God also. If you look at the Western religions, no religion is actually Western, but the religions which flourished in the West. Or if you look at in another way, the Abrahamic religions, you will see that God is an entity which is living away from human beings. But in Indian context, or if you look at the Eastern philosophical notions of theological ideas, we will see that God is inside. The right and wrong, the heaven and hell, everything is within your mind. So the value of mind for the East is entirely different. And the knowledge about the mind in the East was 1,000 times more advanced than what the knowledge of mind in the West. So the whole inquiry of mental mind was started in the West in the last 100 years, hardly 125 years. But the whole idea of mind in the East started not less than 3,500 years. So the difference is huge. So the understanding will be quite different. Many people ask when I'm traveling, why homeopathy was so popular in India. It could not sustain in the Europe. Thing is very, very simple. The philosophical world in which our inner world is living is totally different in the East and West. For an Indian to understand homeopathy and its holism is like very simple. It's part of our existence. But for a Western man to understand in that perspective, it is very difficult. And that is why to know the philosophy, you know the reality, you know the world, you know how the people are thinking differently, and you will understand how the people are behaving differently. And you will understand how the people will conclude differently. That conclusion makes a huge difference. So as homeopathy practitioners, what I would like to say that this tradition of knowledge with us, integrating mind and body as a single unit, is something amazing. And that knowledge is personified in homeopaths, not in any other system of medicine. And the greatest advantage of homeopathy in this scheme is homeopathy has a drug invention method. A drug invention method, drug proving, I would rather like to say that it is a drug invention method, the most scientific drug invention method in a biological system. In modern medicine, they start the drug invention from a lower animal, from a mice, from a monkey, and to many other animals, then to many volunteers, because everything is toxic. But in homeopathy, straight away, you start working with the human body and mind with every drug. And you extract the signs and symptoms which is created during the drug proving process. It is a pure, unblemished source of information for a physician or a medical science to practice. And that is what homeopathy has. That is why we cure patients. That is why I was telling in the previous classes, when you do a drug proving with a 30 potency, few pills, why you are getting symptoms? You are getting symptoms because symptoms are produced naturally in the body and mind. How the symptoms are produced naturally in the body and mind? Because this stimulation from the drug material, which we called in the last time I said it is nano and quantum material, definitely energy levels are very close to that, which modify transiently for a short time your gene expression and you produce symptoms. When you have similar symptoms, when you give the same drug, you get similar reversal of transmission in the gene regulation. So gene regulatory mechanism is where homeopathy is operating, because homeopathic drugs are subtle. They are not, I don't say it is divine or spiritual or something. I will say it is material in the most subtle form, material in a quantum level, and material from the quantum to energy level, it can influence the mind. So that is why we produce mental symptoms, mind symptoms during drug proving. And when you prescribe a medicine for a physical ailment, you see the mental frame and you see the mind symptoms to prescribe. So our science is a completely holistic science. From the drug invention to the application of drug to the cure of patients, we are absolutely holistic. We are not dualistic at that point. That is the reason why modern medicine and homeopathy has a clash, a difference, an understanding difference, or even don't understand each other most of the time. So, but I can tell you, this holism is the next stage of health and human, the contribution of homeopathy to the next stage of human development in the health science is going to be the core of therapeutic optimism. Thank you very much, and we can take little time for any discussions on this. Thank you so much, Dr. Noori. Thank you everyone for joining this evening. And this book is available. New Days is right now available in Amazon, but after some times you can get it from Rajendran also. And we are very happy that these 3 sessions went on very well with good participation and joining. So we are there to see again and again. Thank you so much, Dr. Noori. Any queries we can take now?
As we conclude today's session, I would like to extend our heartfelt gratitude to Professor for sharing his intellectual depth, clarity, and decades of experience with us. All 3 webinars have been wonderful, and it has been a journey of in-depth understanding. And a special thanks to Homeopathy 360 for hosting this webinar and creating a platform for academic growth and meaningful dialogue with the homeopathy community. And of course, thank you to our participants. Let's take some queries, sir.
Yeah, please.
The first question, the name is not mentioned, but he's asking, have you done any studies on the animal remedies using nanotechnology?
Animal remedies. I don't understand exactly what it means. You mean product of animal like lactifloratum or lacananum, such things, or what exactly they mean? Can you ask?
For example, they are asking, have you just like you detected aurum in nanoparticles, have you seen the same with animal remedies?
I'll tell you one thing. The person who asked the question, I request them to read Nanodynamics book. You get a clear picture of that. There are 2 things in this. One is the plant, animal, or any organic material. In that case, I have done a lot of studies. You can see in the book. Basically, the organic world is a combination of carbon, hydrogen, and oxygen, whereas the metals and minerals are independently different. So the study is different, electron microscopy is different, and the outcome is different. But in every plant and animal remedies, you will find the nanomaterials in a combination of or carbon, hydrogen, oxygen in different percentage with a different
Yes.
morphology.
Right. Another question is, have you quoted any Indian Vedic philosophical context in the book when you were in need? This is asked by Dr. Srinivas.
Can you just tell me the question again? Let me be clear about what he wanted to.
Dr. Srinivas is asking, have you quoted any Indian Vedic philosophical context in the book when you were in need for your own reference in the book itself? Have you mentioned?
Definitely. Not in these books, because in this book, if he's interested to know about it, he can go to the book which is the Ray of Civilization, which is available in Amazon right now, in which I have quoted a lot of Indian philosophical context. Thank you.
Dr. Veena is asking, what about the nanomedicine producing artificial chronic disease, which suspends the original chronic disease in a similar and dissimilar kindly?
I think too theoretical it is, because I don't know whether it is nanomedicine will produce artificial chronic disease. Homeopathic medicines won't produce artificial chronic diseases. It produces symptoms of the drug. If you give more quantity of drug at some point of time, Hahnemann himself explained about it in the last years of his practice and life. The drug, when you limit, when you cross a limit of the stimulation, the drug symptoms will be produced in the body, and it will automatically disappear when you are withdrawing the medicine. But this can happen when not in nanoscale. If you are giving arsenic 3C or 3x or any of the poisonous material in the lowest quantity, 1x, 2x, 3x, you can produce artificial chronic disease, which may be incurable. Even you can damage the kidney and liver of the patient. So that is something which educated homeopath need not do, and nobody does it like that.
Right. Dr. Veena is also asking, while drug proving with nanomedicine, what would be the impact in investigation reports?
There is nothing called nanomedicine. I think she's a bit confused about nanomedicine when she's asking. It is purely what I'm talking is homeopathy only. Because
Yes.
homeopathy is using nano as a therapeutic agent. Nano is the therapeutic content of homeopathic pharmacopoeia. Nano is the content of homeopathic dilutions. That's what I am trying to say. It's something not different from what we are doing every day. Even for a drug proving, you are using the same medicine, and that medicine contains the nanomaterial.
I hope
It's not.
attendees have. Yes, sir. Please continue.
Yeah, carry on, please.
Rest are all appreciation. Everybody is saying that it has been a highly excellent webinar. Really, sir, it has been so motivational and inspiring, getting all the knowledge that you have shared with us, all the years of decades of research, really. And I hope the our audience will go and check out all the 3 books written by Professor Dr. E.S. Rajendran. Until then, stay inspired, stay curious, and continue your
Oh,
journey. The proper.
one small correction, Dr. Nuri. I have written 7 books. 6 books are available in India. One book is not available in India. It is in German, and that is Emergency Medicine. I am a co-author for that book. That's available in English and German. English is available with Narayana Verlang, and German language it is available for the last 17 years. But the remaining 3 books, 4 books in homeopathy, and latest one more book I have published that was in local vernacular language is getting translated into English.
Wonderful, sir.
All these books are available right now in Amazon, and some are with the BJ also.
We have got one more question. I'm not sure. Dr. Sanket is asking, can you tell me how much potency should be taken? It's not complete question, I guess.
It's not a complete question, because potency
Yes.
you practice with the different potencies.
Yes. So, all right, audience, if you have any questions that you would like me to, ask Dr. Rajendran, please share your queries on Homeopathy 360 and send us your emails, and we'll connect with Sir and get back to you. Once again, Sir, thank you for your time. Thank you for sharing all the amazing knowledge. Thank you, audience, for your time. Goodbye,
Thank you
everyone.
so much. Thank you, everyone. Thank you so much.
Thank you, sir.